Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
For the record, I would never lick my iPad. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, definitely not. But I've seen a couple of times before. Have you ever watched Gizmo Slip?
No. It's but if it involves iPad licking, maybe I'm not that interested.
It's basically the most arbitrary objects used as phone cases, but essentially like he'll freeze, let's say freeze an iPhone in a bowl of water and then like see if it can survive a 30-meter drop in like an ice case, or sometimes he'll do it in like M&Ms or some food, or like he's done it in between pizza and stuff. And yeah, he eats if he's done it in between food, he'll eat some of the stuff off the ground, which is insane.
Okay, I'm sure he may contract something, but anyway, that does sound semi-intriguing. What is intriguing, though, is that you are podcasting from a new location. So where are you now, Nick?
Yep, making my way down south of Australia, down the east coast. I'm in Melbourne now, so yep, it's like podcasting from a new space, but also I've got some new gear, which is really exciting, because now in the new place I've got some light fittings that are actually HomeKit compatible, so I can I got some smart lights, which is really exciting, and basically every room in the house now has Philips Hue, which works really well and it's pretty awesome. So then just to make sure that in every room I didn't have to have my device with me, I got another HomePod, which is also really exciting. I decided to go white this time. So,
that's the biggest surprise.
Yeah, it's actually really, really good looking. It's on like a wooden bedside table, and it just, the contrast is so good. So yeah, it looks really cool.
Awesome. Really looking forward to hearing your feedback about your HomeKit experience. Okay, so in case you missed it, there was an Apple education event. But before we dive into that, there's also some recent releases that have been sprung on us, and that is watch bands and leather sleeves. So as Nick has mentioned before, watch bands are released roughly every quarter, I think, and the spring collection of watch bands, which were announced last week, are actually available now in Australia. There's 4 sport loops, 3 sport bands, 3 Nike Sports, 5 Nike Sport loops, 4 woven nylons with a new pattern, 3 leather, and 4 Hermes, which has this cool kind of coloured edge, still far out of my price bracket.
I think it did get a price drop though. On the Double tour, I think that used to be more expensive, $709 now. Stand to be corrected, but it seems cheaper.
I think I just blanked out at it. I don't even bother looking at the prices of those anymore.
Michelle loves them, so we always check them out. But yeah, no trigger on that one yet.
No dark lugs.
Yeah, this is obviously disappointing, but altogether not surprising. I think that I genuinely don't know why, but I think Apple just thinks they must look all right with the stainless steel lugs, or I don't know why they don't give us the choice.
There are some third parties, but I don't know if I can stretch to buying a third party band. But anyway,
you don't have, like, the thing is that I always want to try is just buying third party lugs and then just swapping out the lugs, because that's doable. But the thing is, in the colors where they actually matter, i.e. space gray and space black, they're quite hard to come by, and especially not in Australia. So I don't know, places don't always ship here, and it's quite a mission. But ultimately, there are solutions that involve having a nice like Apple band, but then some other third party lug.
Any accessory suppliers, if you provide dart lugs for Australia, then you have 2 customers. So,
well, look, it's more compelling than a HomePod coaster, right? So
yeah, exactly. Leather sleeves and some smart covers. So for the 10.5-inch iPad, there was just around last night, this morning when the event happened, electric blue and soft pink. There are also some smart covers as well, red, raspberry, and lemonade. Do any of these hold any attraction for you?
No, but one thing that's interesting is that they kept they've got the same color collection for all of the leather things, but then they didn't have the yellow version.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting, because then if they think it looks bad at that scale, at what scale does it start looking bad? Because in my opinion, it's pretty early.
Yeah, that is true. And of course, to match the leather sleeves, there are the pencil cases in electric blue and soft pink too. So I still love the look of the midnight blue sleeve, but yeah, if someone out there wants some softer tones or something a bit brighter, Apple have catered for you. But now we're going to get into the event itself. Now, before we kind of break it down, I want to get a bit of an overall reaction to it. So what are your thoughts on the actual event itself, and stuff like the venue, the style of the presentation, the visual style, and then the actual speakers that they chose?
The thing that I liked about the venue, is that it is making, the whole point is to make that connection directly with the education market. And I think that having a venue in a place that is clearly about education makes a lot of sense. It is a little bit surprising given the fact that they do have the beautiful Steve Jobs Theatre, but I think it's more symbolic of, well, instead of education coming to Apple, Apple's coming to them. And so yeah, that was pretty good. And then it's also nice to actually see that they think that this stuff is event worthy. We know that they had one a number of years ago. I think the last one was in 2012, where they had an education event. So it's been a while, but yeah, it's good to see them following up on that. And the visual style of presentation I really, really liked. So it was visually brighter than most of their slides. They have that, typical Apple theme where it's quite it's like very dark blue. And in this case, it seemed that it was much lighter, much brighter, and more vibrant. And I loved the annotations. It was very clear that the theme was, drawing on iPad all the way through. And I thought that was really awesome.
It certainly was no surprise that Apple Pencil support was announced.
Yeah, it would have been a shock if it wasn't.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, we've got Crayon, but anyway, we'll get to that later. And so yeah, the speakers that was really also quite cool. I think there's a lot of pressure on tech companies to have diverse presenters, and I know Apple really, really cares about having that go on behind the scenes, i.e. not just pick your one female out of 100 engineers to come and present, but they really believe in having those people at top management, and also chose to, showcase female teachers, which I think was really, really good. So yeah, it was, I thought it was entertaining, for what it was.
Yeah, it's nice how they open and close with Tim Cook, and just even the way it started, you compare that to Tim Cook's first keynote presentation, and it's like night and day. He's just so confident and smooth and delivers it so well. And I just remember that, first presentation, he really had that kind of monotone vibe, and it seemed a lot more scripted, whereas he's obviously over the years has just gained the knack for it, and he's so fluent with it. We also saw Joz, of course, who's making more and more appearances lately. Susan Prescott, I instantly remembered her from, I think it was WWDC 16, when they slapped like iWork into one of the keynotes.
Yeah.
So that was her. And there was someone I've never seen before, Kathleen Richardson, who works for Connect Ed in Apple. And as you said, there were various teachers as well. I kind of didn't want to say this, but the one from Dunham School seemed a little creepy. I don't know whether she was nervous or something, but anyway.
What was her story?
I forget the story. She's the one that had that really sort of soft, high voice.
Oh, she was the one that finished all of the Apple courses for teachers. I thought, oh, come on, that's quite harsh, but yeah.
I didn't want to say it. Just one of those passing thoughts. I'm like, maybe she's just nervous. I don't know, but anyway.
Just to go back to what you're saying about Tim looking so much more relaxed, I couldn't agree more. He looks much more confident and relaxed than he would have a number of years ago. And I think it's partly to do with the experience, but also just that every single product that Apple makes these days is being born under him. And so I think that this is sort of his vision for Apple. And so he can confidently present it as something that he believes in. So, yeah, I think it's a number of things at play, but definitely cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. So what do you think about the increasing the frequency of these sort of bonus keynotes? Because as you said, the last one you think was around 2012.
Well, I think if they have something to present, i.e., if they can keep this, or if they can up the pace of development in these niche areas. Now, I don't know what it means in terms of taking engineers off of other things, but ultimately, we always want to see Apple growing and developing and doing things in all sectors, because I think with education, there's a lot of incentive for Apple beyond just them believing that it's the right thing to do. Obviously, if you lock in essentially a student into the Apple ecosystem pretty early, they'll likely be a lifetime customer. So, there's business benefit and social benefit.
Oh, definitely agree. Just before we continue, in terms of the style, love that light grey, white, and with the sort of light neon annotations, as you said. So that was definitely a unique take on the keynote look. What did slightly freak me out was when I sort of woke up early in the morning to this, and I was checking in on all the announcements and the news. The first thing I saw was a photo of the screen of the final frame of that iPad introduction, where it's kind of like the lock screen but illustrated. And for a second there, I freaked out that they'd introduced a handwritten style alteration of the UI. And I was gut-wrenchingly bad. I was like, no, because I always used to rib Galaxies for offering that option with that different style of font.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, surely not. And yeah, gladly it was not the case.
It's a little bit of an overreaction there, but as you say, you were waking up at middle of the night, so it's understandable.
The iPad itself, can you run down what they're offering here?
Yep, it's the same design that we've seen for a number of years, the iPad Air 1 design. It comes in the new gold that matches the Apple Watch and iPhone 8 and 8 Plus gold. Which,
I love it.
It's quite nice, yep. And then it comes with the A10 Fusion chip, so upgrade on the chip there. Same stereo speakers. It's the same price, 469 Australian dollars. Education's 439, and it now has Apple Pencil support.
Yes.
So this is absolutely fantastic. Great addition.
It's the most iPad Pro, non-iPad Pro. It's probably about as far as they can take it before they're encroaching on the iPad Pro territory.
Yeah, I think at a high level, in terms of, I think a lot of customers always ask, well, what can it do? And not really how is the experience improved. So if you look at it in terms of what can it do, it really is encroaching on iPad Pro, with the pencil support, which is more useful, I think, than the keyboard support, because although I love my smart keyboard, I think the Bluetooth keyboard is probably only like half as good, whereas a third-party stylus is probably 1/100th as good. It's nowhere near as good. So it's definitely the better one of the two, and also the more popular, I think. But in terms of how the experience, obviously, when you look at the Pro, you've got ProMotion and True Tone display, a whole bunch of other sort of functionality that you can't really. It just ups the experience, but doesn't add any features, if you know what I mean.
I think you and I certainly really appreciate those iPad Pro specific features and tech specs. And as you said, in addition to ProMotion, True Tone, the wide color gamut, smart connector, optical image stabilization, and I know that you're a keen, iPad photographer, as much as some people, might think it'd be a bit dorky in public, but
that's changed a bit. So I will say that I'm not against it. But it was mainly because that was when I had an iPhone 6 and my iPad Pro had 6S camera. So I just go for best camera. If I have a better camera on my iPad, I'm using it.
Okay, I can understand that. And 4K video recording, and the iPad Pro has 4K video recording, and the second gen Touch ID, whereas this one has the first gen. So taking all that into account, upcoming iPad Pro, we've mentioned it several times. Just a quick prediction. You're now, given rumors and everything that's going on, what do you think the likelihood is of seeing a redesigned iPad Pro this year?
Oh man,
I'm still hanging for June.
I don't think we're going to see a completely redesigned iPad in June. I'm just looking at the stagnation in design, and I'm wondering if they would have gone, nearly bezel-less to go more bezel-less the following year. So I'm not too optimistic at the moment, but I'm thinking Face ID iPad in September.
September this year.
Yep. This year.
Okay, cool. Because I've divulged my iPad Pro upgrade plans to you, so I'm still gunning for June, but let's see.
I don't think, let's say it didn't come in June, and you realize, okay, I want iPad plus Apple Pencil again. There's a pretty compelling option at a low price point that you could probably recover a fair amount of your money back when you went, for the Pro whenever it does come out, if not June. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So the reason I want a redesign other than a redesign is also then because it can further differentiate between iPad Pro and iPad. Just visually, you'd be able to see it.
Yeah, I really hope that that's the case.
Yes. Now, speaking of things that were a surprise, but I get why it exists, but we may probably screw our noses up at it, is the Logitech Crayon. So it's not overly elegant, but it's a cheap alternative to Apple Pencil and their rugged 9.7-inch iPad case. I get why they've built these, obviously, because, if there's families out there, if the schools have to buy the pencils and stuff, they might not want to go as high as an Apple Pencil, and the rugged case because, depending on their age especially, they're prone to dropping things.
As you say, as much as we might not look at it and want it, it's not really... I think it's great for its target market, and I think that for primary school and preschool, basically primary school or earlier, it makes sense because they're still I don't know, they could drop it, lose it.
Yeah.
You start to think, okay, now, and it's at a lower price point. So when those things are happening, sure, get 80% of the, or 100% of the, it's not pressure sensitive, it's tilt sensitive, right? So it's got 80% of the features, 10% of the design, but then, when you're a high school student or a university student, sure, get the Apple Pencil. So I'm glad that they, working with other people to say, look, this wouldn't fit in with our Apple aesthetic, but we 100% for someone else buying it or selling it, sorry.
I at least do applaud Logitech for filling that gap. I don't really think I'd want Apple releasing a low-end chunky kid version of Apple Pencil. So, yeah. iWork updates. iWork lives on. I think both you and I had not so much written it off, but we have, you especially, a heavy Office user or Excel user at least. Do you think, I know that it's aimed more at students and stuff, but do you think maybe you give iWork another go with the pencil support? Maybe a bit of a play around?
I think maybe Pages and Keynote, I don't even know what I would use them for, but I don't think I could never use
numbers.
I just couldn't. It I can't even do the basic stuff for me, so I just couldn't. But I like where they're going with this, and I like I know they've had collaboration for a while, but it seems like they're really taking it to the next level. They again touting that you can collaborate in real time, so hopefully that means that it's less laggy than I know collaboration tools have been for me in the past, whether they're Apple or not Apple. And I also like smart annotation. So I really do like a lot of the features, and I see this working so well for education. Because I know Google Docs for its collaboration is really popular in education. So hopefully this can trump that.
I love smart annotations. They did announce it is in beta, but in terms of a industry first, no one else offers this. I just think that's amazing. And we have essentially recognized the fact that this is an education event, so we're not going to get as psyched, or the what they're showcasing is not going to be as relevant to us as the other main two. But it's certainly good to appreciate that, and that it's great that they're giving that focus on education, particularly in a sort of world where Chromebooks are so popular. So hopefully they can kind of like bring back a bit more of that use and rollout of iPad for education. Also within that, iBooks Author kind of lives on via Pages, so you can create your interactive book within Pages. That's cool too. Augmented reality, not something that is a favourite feature of yours, as far as I can tell. You always bring back the Wall-E example. I'm super keen on it. I was hoping that more would have rolled out since the big focus from WWDC last year, and stuff is still coming. But did you actually watch the preview demos this time? I know beforehand you said you kind of lose a bit of focus on the presentation when it comes to demos.
Yeah, I watched them. I think it's really cool. I love the Frogpedia. I thought that was really awesome.
Really cool. Yep.
Yeah, being able to dissect without. I like the joke was quite funny where he was like, it's quite bad for the environment and also has dire consequences for the frogs. So yeah, I did enjoy that, and I think it was cool. I'm more open to AR than VR. I think VR is really when you start going into Wall-E territory, but AR for learning especially is really cool.
Definitely love Frogpedia, the World Wildlife Foundation Free Rivers. That was cool. I did download an AR Kit Thomas the Tank Engine app, and it's a similar thing where you like map out your whole track on like a flat surface, like a table. So this is a similar sort of thing, and that was fun to use. So I'd be keen to try that. Hopefully it's not as much of a battery chewer as the Thomas one was. Boulevard AR, loved. It was very impressive in terms of being able to retain all the detail and the realism. Unfortunately for me, you may call me shallow, but the icon sucks. So I'm not really sure I want to go as far as actually keeping it on my device.
Yeah.
Yeah. For teachers, so obviously being an education event, the second half definitely really focused on teachers here. So Schoolwork is a new app for teachers to hand out assignments, keep track on students' progress, give students documents and reminders. How it works is similar to just composing an email, so it seems very natural to use. And Preston was very clear on the privacy stance. Like she like raised the volume in her voice and almost seemed very it kind of reminded me of similar to when you have like someone delivering like a powerful speech or something, and just that single line which was saying Apple cares so much about privacy, we do not stray away from that, we want to keep that is like one of the number one things that we're all about. So do you think that how she delivered that was kind of like influenced by the Cambridge Analytica sort of thing going on?
Absolutely. The Apple will push and push and push that they don't collect your data and don't care about your data. And I think rightly so, because I think it's a very important issue and a great marketing tool. So especially, I think it's one thing caring about your own data, but I think people especially care about their children being open to the world. Can you imagine if it got out that Apple was collecting your kids' grades so that they could then sell marketing and push you towards certain products? That would be I could just imagine Apple dying as a result, because they already
they're already caught paper flack anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that just would not sit well with anybody, no matter how much of a fan they are. So great. I'm really glad, and I think they have every right to push that they don't.
I really feel like with what's happened recently with the whole Facebook thing and that, if one of these big giants were to crumble based on something like this privacy and incorrectly using someone's data and that sort of thing, I just, as much as people say Apple are behind, they're doomed, etc., all that sort of crap, I would just love for something like that to happen to another company, and then Apple are just the ones that have remained true to their stance on privacy throughout. So that's something we certainly respect them for.
Absolutely, and this sort of stuff can happen when you're, as you say, ahead, when not really ahead. If you take a look at Uber in self-driving cars, they're probably closest to the market, and then they had a fatality, which, by the looks of it, was not really the self-driving car's fault. But of course, the natural reaction is, well, no one could have done anything about it. And if it wasn't self-driving, someone could have at least potentially interfered, and now who's at fault? So, but now they've been banned from testing in that state. And so, you go back quite quickly. And I think something similar can happen with Facebook and Google. I know Google is also being kept in the spotlight with all this privacy stuff, especially in tweets. People are saying this is what Facebook and Google keep on you and showing people how to see what they have. So I'm glad that Google's not sort of falling away. I say while I have Google Wi-Fi and Google Home with the mic turned on.
We have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Google, so...
Google Wi-Fi is really amazing, but I really, really, really hope that they aren't keeping my web browsing history. They don't, right? I'm pretty sure they don't.
We'll see. We'll wait for another scandal to come out. Okay, so following on from the schoolwork app is a new API framework called ClassKit. This is going to come in iOS 11.4, expected around June. And this is cool because it'll allow the teachers to direct link an activity to a student within a certain app. I think it's pretty cool. And following off the privacy thing, it privately shares the progress data with the teacher. And in terms of teachers being able to get up to speed with all of this, there is Apple Teacher. This is training for using iPads and teacher-related apps. There's a little fact of 1 million badges were earned. So, over 1 million teachers have completed this. So that's pretty cool. And Classroom is coming to Mac. This is how you manage students' iPads. They made a point of a shared iPad, so it's not like a student owns an iPad directly. You can basically switch however much you want, and to switch between one student's profile to another, they say takes under a minute, which is pretty cool. And the teacher or the school can generate and manage Apple IDs for the students. One thing that really amazed me was that they said it can create 1,500 student Apple IDs in 1 minute.
Yeah, that was really amazing. I've read some stuff around them not making that easy to create. So if you're creating 1,500 in a minute, I find that highly unlikely.
I think that's a maximum case scenario. But speaking of increases, students are getting a good deal with iCloud storage.
Oh, yeah. I never realized that they weren't actually able to update it or upgrade it, so they were stuck on 5 gigs no matter what. But
okay,
it's actually
neither did I.
Yeah, but it's actually now 200 gigabytes. It's free, but also maximum. So yeah, that's still great because it's bigger than all of their devices. So if you think that it should encompass your whole device plus your projects, and that sounds great.
What do you think in terms of them rolling an increase out to the public for free? Do you think they'd ever get there? Like they could get beyond 5 gigs for free?
So I'm on 200 gigs now, and I'm just trying to remember. I know there was 550 and 200. Is there now only 5 and 200? And then 2 terabytes?
I'm not sure.
So I'm thinking if there's a tier between 5 and 200, then they'll probably go that tier. Otherwise it'll be probably 200. That could happen.
I'm not miffed with it because I upgraded my storage and I only pay $1.50 a month. Like, it is negligible. To me, anyway.
Yeah, I think to most people, I don't think it's exorbitant, so yeah. And that reminds me, I think there is 50 gigs in between.
I think it's more the case of people thinking that, Apple products are so expensive anyway, why do I have to pay more? And that sort of mindset, but you can't help that. With their curriculum, so they covered Swift Playgrounds, which is obviously directly related to the Everyone Can Code curriculum. They showed that there's the addition of AR in there, which is pretty cool. And they introduced a new one that's obviously focused on illustration and all that sort of thing, and that is Everyone Can Create. So it's cool they're sort of covering both bases there. Now, they wrapped up the event with a couple of videos. There's the first one where basically it's got these primary school kids giving their appreciation of teachers. So what did you think of that?
That was so my sister's a teacher, and I actually recorded that video and sent it to her. It was pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I feel like it was a nice feel-good sort of thing for the teachers in the crowd. They did actually, someone pointed out on Twitter, but they did actually sort of show a bit more of the crowd reaction style shots in this keynote. So at that exact moment after the video sort of wrapped up, they showed, a couple of teachers doing the holding their hand to their heart, like, oh, that's just wonderful. So there was actually a fair bit in the way of videos kind of like placed throughout, and they wrapped it up with one which we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, geared around homework. So I think the video itself works well, and they're essentially trying to pitch a situation where you've got a teacher trying to assign projects within the class and dealing with kids making noise and the bell going off early and all that sort of stuff. And essentially a group of kids then embrace a project to show off gravity, and they're just going around with the iPad and filming stuff and editing with all the programs. But that one watermelon scene where they drop the watermelon, it splatters all over the iPad, and then that little chubby kid licks the watermelon off the back. Why? I've never seen a kid do that in real life.
Don't think a kid would do that in real life. It was weird. But there was one also weird thing where, that was weird, but it didn't put me off the ad. Like, I didn't think beyond that. I was like, whoa, but then didn't think about it again. But then when I watched it back again, there's a part where they're all in the garage, pretending there's no gravity, and then the dad opens the garage door, and then she's like, Dad. I'm like, and I thought, every time I see that, I just think, well, how the hell is he supposed to know that you're recording that? He's coming home from work. Like, I just don't get it. It's not like he's purposefully interrupting their homework.
No, I think, I don't know, maybe the sort of age bracket, like, you do sort of get those reactions if you sort of hark back to like early teen years and that sort of thing. But yeah, like they're unjustified. But I guess they're trying to go for a bit of realism angle there. But if I saw a kid lick an iPad, I'd slap it out of his hand and then catch it so it doesn't hit the floor. So I hope that never happens. Well, that brings us to the end of the education event wrap up. So are there any final thoughts on this?
Not really. I think the one thing is, it did teach me to not trust the rumors, as if I shouldn't already know that. But I did expect a lower price, and we already did kind of discuss this outside of this. But I guess it was just, it's so obvious that so many, like The Verge actually had an article, right? And I get Apple News Alert, and the article alert came up saying Apple announces lowest priced iPad ever. And it was the same. It's the same price. So I don't like, they're so clearly prepared for that as soon as Apple was like saying our lowest priced iPad, they're not saying ever. That is just lowest in the lineup. And so they had prepared for it and put out the article midway through the iPad announcement before they even had that price up. That was
I mean, it is The Verge, so.
Well, it goes to show how many people expected it to be lower based on the rumors.
Well, speaking of rumors, a product red iPhone 10. What do you think the likelihood of that is, just to throw a bit of a curveball?
It's about the likelihood of a gold iPhone 10.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So yeah, and we're not going to go into a full rumor mill because there's a lot of stuff happening, but that is one of the things going on. A supposed additional color of iPhone 10. Obviously, they're just trying to do the whole repeat history scenario, given that we had flat out fun iPad around this time last year. So, and then the product red.
Yeah, if it were to exist, it would actually be probably in September, and no new iPhone 10, but like maybe iPhone 10 Plus. So I think if new colors exist, I don't think they were, because they've just done their refresh of their product lineup.
Just before I wrap this up, one thing that doesn't actually relate to education at all, that I'm just still waiting to be released, is AirPower. Any thoughts on
11.
how that's going to happen?
11.4.
Okay, so
don't
June.
You think? I think 11.4. June.
Okay.
Oh, actually, sorry. I knew that I had something associated with unreleased by 11.4.
Oh, you mean 11.3 maybe?
No, I'm thinking 11.4. But I was also thinking the features for HomePod, the additional features, the multi-room and the stereo. Yeah, yep. So I think they'll also be out with 11.4.
Okay, that makes sense. And that brings us to the end of episode 47 of Apple Slice. As we've mentioned, each episode we are part of Ozcast Network. I just want to give a shout out to a couple that I listen to and I keep in touch with, and that is Yeah G'day with Leon and Tim, and AB Film Review with husband-wife team Andrew and Bernadette. So definitely check them out. Go to ozcastnetwork.com. They're always expanding. It seems to be every day they're adding a new podcast, so it's great to be part of a growing network. And yeah, if you want to get little bits of information between, we are on social media with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're not really into the podcast players, you can actually listen on YouTube too. So if people do want to subscribe, Nick, where do they go?
You can find us on appleslice.com.au.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Anything else to add, or is that's pretty much your education fill for the year?
So one thing I actually did think I remember about the keynote was Tim said, it makes me want to be a student again. Am I the only one? And then I was like, no, actually, I really would want to be a student again. But I find it funny that what else could he achieve?
Yes. Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah, I know. I was a bit like, I'm not really sure how genuine that is, but whatever. People got a bit of a laugh. So.
That was completely not scripted. That was definitely genuine. I think he just looked at me and was like, wow, okay, homework in my day was not like this.
It was a good keynote. It was to the point. It did feel like at the start with Jaws that they were kind of flying through it pretty quickly, but upon second watch, it's actually paced relatively well. So there you go. Bring on WWDC. I'm so pumped for that.
Yep.
Right before we sign off, I'd love to thank Lance for filling in for Nick in the last 2 episodes. So cheers, man.
Yep. Big thanks to Lance.
Cool. All right. I'll catch you in the next episode.
Cheers.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.